to those that saw me yesterday, but just by way of a refresher, who am I? Simon Polovina. Talked a little bit yesterday. It's a pity really that I'm clashing with Neil Kent, the other guy in the other room, because we do overlap quite a bit more. But it's always a choice, isn't it? Okay, so I'm not going to rerun the show that I did yesterday. I'm just going to pick up some things. Let's just have a bit of fun. What we will do is just review a couple of the slides I showed yesterday, show a couple of extra ones, and then we're just going to deep dive into the tool, straight into the heart of one of the meta models, performance meta model inside of Lee. Go right to the heart, as you might see inside the tool. And let's have some fun with it, and let's look how we can iterate it, how we can look at examples of things that might come out, showing in terms of the different levels of modeling, including looking at the mathematical level by doing formal proofs on it as well. Okay, so now, first thing, you've got to imagine I've got a white lab coat on here, a white lab coat. That's my semiotic sign to tell you guys that what we're talking about here is experimental stuff. So we're just kicking around some things. I'll point out some issues with the meta model, but the reason why I point out those issues with the meta model is not because the meta model is wrong, it's because yours truly has tweaked it to demo some of the things to illustrate where there could be room for consideration. And I would say improvement, but something that needs to be looked at as well. So please, number one, we're going in a sort of research hypothetical, let's consider kind of mode. So, unlike in Mark's previous session, this is how we do it. These are considerations. The advantage, I hope, to you guys is that you can start to see and understand some of the anatomy of the actual model itself and issues that we can use to potentially enhance tool support for this environment. Of course, I have the semantics guy. We talked about semantics and ontology yesterday. Not going to run the PowerPoint show again, but just to remind ourselves of things we looked at. We looked at this thing called semantics, we looked at ontology, vocabulary, and all those other guys. Okay, so let's just get hands-on. Let's have a look at what this ontology thingo is about as well. Alright, so I've got some hidden slides in here. I didn't show them yesterday because of background and down in case I've got questions or further discussion and stuff. Okay, so here's an example of Moore's core context. Have you come across Moore's core context at all? Yes? No? No. Hands if no? Hands if yes? Hands if, well, what's it to me anyway? Okay, Moore's core context. Yeah, core differentiating competencies, non-core. I'll keep it simple to those two. All right. On the left is the thing that makes our enterprise different. On the right is all the non-core stuff. So, quick question: why does Moore call it core and context? Why does he call the non-core activity context? Remember, yes, just give you a bit of a hint.
It's known.
It's known, okay. And let me just remind you. Remember this guy from yesterday? Everything's got a context. So what's more on about here then?
Known objects.
Known objects, any other suggestions?
Known relationship.
I want to show you that. Yeah. Bear with me while I navigate to the appropriate slide. Yeah, known objects.
Known relationships.
Okay. That's one. That's certainly a valid comment between known objects and known relationships. So why isn't the thing on the left not also called context? In other words, to paraphrase Moore, he says, what makes your business different is core, everything else is context. What makes your business is core, and everything else is context.
that predominantly high strategic value, low strategic.
Low strategic value, but what do I mean by context? Wait, I'll make it more heavy. What do I mean by context? Every object's got a context. Now I'm always saying something different here. So, was I lying to you yesterday?
A little bit.
A little bit. I can tell you I was not lying yesterday. And we are not inconsistent. There's still context on the left. But listen to the phrase. What makes your business different is core and everything else is context. It's other stuff which you were touching on. Yeah? It makes sense? What you do is your context. What you do is you. And everything else is context. Now, is everybody okay with where I am with this? Right. Okay. Right, those of you that have got it at least, and the rest of you will get it shortly, tell me, from an ontology perspective, right, the O word is correct in here, what the difference is between core and context. Tell me in terms of ontology what the difference is. Give your best shot. Yeah.
Talking about that object model you got.
Yeah.
Could it be that semantic way I assembled
Yeah.
my resources
Yeah.
historically is now no longer competitive?
The semantic resources that you assembled are no longer competitive. Yeah? If you look at that flow model, there's a flows in between now. Let me show you something. Yes, thanks. So what I want to do is when I talk about stuff, I want to get everything right so you understand where I'm coming from. So I spent a little bit of time on this guy. Okay. Now in here somewhere, I showed you some other pictures. And I showed you this guy, and I know you can't see it. But there are some web addresses up there. Okay? Let's make it bigger.
Presentation.
Okay, let's
Down below.
go to view. Oh yes, we can do it that way, of course, you see. What do I know? Over. Whoops. See, I don't know what I'm doing, so
We can hit the presentation button. Maybe.
I hit the presentation button, yeah. But unfortunately, it doesn't allow me to. See, how can I possibly demonstrate two tools when I can't even demonstrate PowerPoint? It's totally pathetic.
On the bottom, the fourth one over. The fourth one over.
Right. Okay. Coming to a presentation near you as in very shortly. I will open this guide. Oh yeah. That's. I was trying to zoom in, not to present it. Okay. I had to zoom in there, and it went potty. Okay. Right. Just to make sure I don't spend hours trying to demo PowerPoint to you very badly. Everybody's okay with what a web address is? Yeah. Right? Everybody okay with what a namespace is? Yes. What's a namespace?
Category.
Yeah, category, some kind of context. Right? Imagine URL. What do URLs point to? I know it's simple stuff, you think of the baby class, I don't blame you, okay?
Location or document.
A location or document to a string or something like a web document. What does the URI point to? This is the technical guys in here. What's the URI point to? No technical guys in here. Nobody does any web technologies. Nobody uses XML. Unique identifier, yeah? Yeah. URI. I have a URI. You have a URI. Yeah? This piece of paper, whoops, I'll pull it off, as a URI. It's an internet of things, not of strings. So it points to things, right? What's this got to do with anything to do with enterprise architecture and modeling? It's a way of disambiguating everything in the ontology. Remember, ontologies only what? We share the same ontology. Yeah? We share one ontology. What we do is we define our own namespace within our ontology. Yes or? Yeah? Making sense, or am I just going to back up here? Yeah?
Yes.
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 It's a you. So, the name of your organisation. Somebody give me the URL of your organisation.
J&J.
Sorry?
J&J.
J&J.com. Where does J&J.com point to? J&J.com. Yeah? Where does Polovina.me.uk point to? Yours truly. Everything points to a disambiguated location. Yeah? So everything in the universe can have its own unique space. And I can be in the same space as J&J.com because we've got different URIs. Yeah? Make sense? So we can play with the ontology because we have our own namespace within that ontology, and then it becomes a task to interrelate our vocabularies or our sub-ontologies, or if you want to use the term ontologies or my ontology. Yeah? Yeah? What's that got to do? Let's go back to more. Okay. What you do is call, and everything else is context. Now, anyone have a go? Tell me in terms of namespaces what the difference is. What makes you unique, and what makes you unique in terms of namespaces?
It's in your namespace.
In your namespace.
Everything else is in the general.
Everything else is context. Somebody else's namespace. If you're outsourcing tools where you're using reference content, you're using things, yeah? Somebody else's. This is what we're getting at between core and context. Yeah? So one simple way, and remember, I'm doing what Einstein said, make things as simple as possible, but no simpler than that. Yeah? I'm trying to make simple scenarios or simple analogies. Yeah? So you think in terms of namespaces, just because it's just getting us to think, I'm not saying go out and do this, please don't try this at home or at work. All right, so there's a disclaimer. We're looking at this hypothetically and conceptually, but we can use simple analogies to get the message across. Okay? So in terms of namespaces, that's everybodyelse.org. Yeah? That could include lead, that could include TOGAF, it can include your outsource supplier, it could include Microsoft, SAP. Yeah? Those of you who work with tools, you see embedded inside those tools namespaces. If you have a look at any object, say in an SAP system, you will find in there is a namespace. If you want to change that namespace, you bring it into your own namespace. So it's core and context. If you don't understand half of this, just think, core is in my namespace. Yeah? Belongs to me. Yeah? If it's context, I'm using somebody else's. Because everybody uses best practices, industry best practices, whatever source you're using, versus what you own. That's conceptually what the distinction is. Because under the hood, that's what's actually happening. So everything else is context. So that's why you see more core and context. But what you're talking about is your core differentiating competencies, core competitive competencies, versus all the non-core stuff. That's the way it's related to in lead. But just to give you an analogy from another perspective. Okay. So, we've seen this guy. We've said we're still got our context, but it's core to us. And then we've got this object relationship that Mark talked about as well. Okay, folks, I hope that was easy, because now we're going straight in. Right into the heart now. So hold your hats. Hold on to your hats. We're going in. Where are we going in? We're going in to all this kind of stuff.
So we can use shift F5 there, so we can do bigger.
Yes, of course. I can do the F5 solution. Oh, sorry.
There you go.
Yeah, please feedback at all times. So the guys at the back, they're not listening to me today. If you don't like it, let me just.
Shift F5.
I can go straight there, can't I?
Yeah.
It's easy.
And down below.
Oh. Let's deep dive. Is that guy on the right? What's the guy on the right? Anybody know? Yeah. Has anybody seen this on the right before? Oops. Wake up, mouse. Anybody seen that before?
Yeah.
The meta model for the performance meta model in lead, which doesn't appear on there, or anywhere under the hood. If you're a tool provider, this is your space. Yeah? Because this is when we can bring formality into the model. All right? So that's a little visual in there. Okay. So that's enough PowerPoint. I can't use PowerPoint, so I'll try and use something I know a little bit about. All right. Here it is, folks, the big one. Yeah? So under the hood, everything that Walt talked about flows, for instance, okay, all that kind of stuff about bottlenecks, yeah? The way to relate things at all the different layers and all the different aspects is in here. Essentially, this guy, which I know you can't read, so let's just make it super big. Okay, so okay, can you guys see that better?
Yeah.
Good. I should try not to. I'm going to take some fairly slow space, so please, if you think I'm telling you as we say in English to suck eggs, yeah, we know this stuff, please move on. I'm happy. I have plenty I can talk about. Okay? Now, if you look at these guys here, let's just forget about this. Where's that beam? Okay, I think it's the. Yeah. I don't know which one presses the button. Anybody know?
It's now the top.
What's the illumination, isn't it, folks? Oh, that one? That one? Probably it's the wrong one. There we go.
All right.
You see how I work? I hack. Yeah, you don't. All right. It's analogous to the way I do stuff with this, because I like to. I said one of these guys that likes to look at things and go right to the heart, and I want to play with it. Okay. So in here, are we all happy that this is an object? Just keep life simple. Yeah. This is an object. What's this guy here? Yeah. So it's like an entity relationship diagram. Okay. What's KPI? PPI? Yeah, SPI. Search performance indicator. To be honest, when I was looking at this to begin with, I was just looking at the objects. I wasn't looking at the signs. Do you remember the difference between a sign and an object? In relationship with the objects themselves. I'm not sure I dare go back into PowerPoint. Let me just remind you, because I think it's important to raise this at this convenient point.
Stop sign.
This guy. Yeah. Remember, objects create signs. Objects create signs. So I'm interested in approaches where the objects generate the signs. So I'm interested in semantic enterprise architecture from my perspective, I'm not saying it's using, because I like things. I can put things in spreadsheets, all the charts that Mark showed you. This guy could figure out the views and squirt out pictures. Yeah? Objects generate signs. Yeah? Make sense? Put stuff in, it generates signs. If you want to change these guys, then you can just configure it. Start with objects generate signs. That's why I stuck that one in yesterday. Okay. I've already broken my promise about PowerPoint. Okay. So in addition, I'm interested in the relation. I'll show you this, I'll demo this when we come to look a bit further on as well. Okay. Which one's the top? Okay. Measure. What's all that about?
It's context.
It's a context. What kind of context?
Category.
Sorry?
I say category.
Is it a category?
Super.
Okay, let's have a look at the category. Okay, let's try this well. I'm going to move around the screen. Let's just do one by one, because I'm just jumping the gun a bit here. Is there any OO guys in here? Yeah? You do Java, C#, whatever. Yeah? Small talk. Yeah. Okay? What does the is-a relationship define?
Subtype.
Subtype. Subclass. Classification. How can we test this? Well, we just play it by the numbers. KPI is a measure. PPI is a measure. Yeah?
So it's a grouping.
It is a classification. You've got measure, then you've got things coming off it. Simple example. What could be a subclass of employee?
Part-time employee.
Part-time, manager, janitor, CEO. They're all subtypes or subclasses.
Is there inheritance zones?
If you have classes, you have inheritance, and yes, that's one of the things I make use of. Yeah? Okay? And I can define in terms of interfaces, if those of you who know your OO stuff. I'm not going to do that here. Alright? I'm going to keep it kite level at the top. Alright? Is everybody okay with the notion of the is-a relationship? Is-a. You can just do it. Yeah? Is-a. KPI is a measure. PPI is. If you can put the word is-a, I-S-A, is a, 2 words, is a, then that's a pretty good short indication. Okay. Number 2. Right, let's think about category, a different form of context. Parts of things. Is a wheel, if I say wheel is a car, does that make sense? Wheel is a car.
No.
No? It's a hazard, yeah? A part of, a composition of, or a decomposition of. Yeah? Yeah. Consists of. So this is the classification. And we need this level of granularity in this model. This is why I'm labouring the point. Because if we're going to do some kind of formal analysis of this stuff, then we've got to be A, we've got to know what we're talking about, and B, okay, make some sense of it.
No, I mean,
No.
that's a composition or specialization.
I'll talk about specialization in a minute. Ask me the question in about 5 minutes. Don't forget. Okay. Go. Let's have a look at this guy. Business competency is a business group. Business competency is a business group. Good English? Business group is... No. Don't be daft, folks. Yeah? Just let me be the stupid one here, okay? It's a categorization. It's a hazard, or it's another form of relation. Now, as Mark was saying before the break, you get all this out of the box. You just use the approaches, you do the decompositions, all the classifications, all this stuff is taken care of you. Yeah? That's the cognitive level. You cognitively go through the processes, you like the Lego ladies, you get hold of the managers and you beat some sense into them. They realise that you're the smart people in the room, and you use the environment and you bootstrap it up cognitively. Yeah? And then Mark mentioned that you have a tool. Yeah? Remember the tool with the full? A full with a tool is always a full, right? So you use a tool to help. The tool needs some structure behind it. So this is why I've got this guy here. So you don't see this, you don't need to because you just use the tools. But because I've got the word semantic attached to my name and ontology attached to my name, I have to live in this space. I live in the basement with my lab coat. All right? So things that we can take, so you can see it's principled. I hope you can see the approach is principled in me. Principle. But just to give you a bit of highlight, because I'm going to play with this stuff, I'm going to take it apart, I'm going to put it back together again. All right? And I'm going to use tools that are not EA tools. Because for me, EA tools are great, I use them, including, I mentioned Essential earlier, involved with those guys, but I want to do my own stuff. And tools provide an environment. It connects between what the tool does and how you use it. For me, I don't need the tool. The tool B can get in the way. Not because it's a bad tool, but it's engineered to facilitate what you guys need to do with it. For me, so I come out of those environments and I get my toy shop out. No analogy with Lego here. I get my toy shop out of my tools and I start playing around with them. Then I can do what I want. And so what I'm going to do now is to show you a couple of things in this environment and explain at a very high level, I hope, what I'm up to and where I'm coming from. I'm going to take this, guys, and I'm going to break it down. Not all of it, but a bit of it. Because then it'll end up looking like a bird's nest. Loads of lines going everywhere. So, folks, I'm happy to give you the names of the tools I use. That is not a problem. But please, that's the whole thing. Right? It's only one meta model, by the way, in Lee, please. Right? I'm happy to give you the name of the tools, but please don't be fools with the tools, because the tools give you no ability. Yeah, they don't help you in that sense. They're purely like it's like you've got no environment. The environment is completely open because I've taken, for my purposes, I want it to be unconstrained by those EA structures and semantics, because I need to understand the semantics, I need to understand ontology, and I need to be able to look at this model and prove it. Well, the tool won't let me prove it, it'll do semantic checks, but I need to prove it. So I need to come out. So that's why I'm showing you the tools I'm showing you, not because I don't know how to use them, but I need to do the stuff I need to do. So, as I say, I know Mark doesn't like me repeating stuff. I always review 3 times you must say something. Okay, so I'll say it once more, second time. I'm happy to give you the name of the tools, but please, please don't use the tools that I show you as if you're using an EA tool. Does it make sense? Right? Because it isn't an EA tool. Right? So, it's a Wild West, to use the American analogy. It's completely open.
So, how many relationship, those lines from one object to another?
Yeah.
Have you defined how many relationships you have identified?
I'm going to show you. And I'm going to use FCA, something called formal concept analysis. The question was what's the number of relationships? And I guess from that, how many objects are there? And so on.
Well,
I'll show you how you can see that visually. And then you can always come back and answer your question if you're not. To be honest, I don't count how many relationships are on here. I did, but I can't remember. Because I've got these tools that will help me do that. Okay. So in outline, yeah? But it's a very good question. It's the kind of thing we ought to know. Right, so here we go. So we've got this guy. Now then, let's have a little bit of fun here. First of all, before I show you something that will really scare you, because it scares me, I'm going to fire up the first of these 2 tools. It's open source, it's free, you go on the web, you download, nothing I've got is proprietary. It's all open source, even the code. You want the code, you can take it to Java, you can do whatever you want. It's open source license, I think it's GNU or whatever. As all the tools I tend to use, including Essential Project, I showed you earlier. You know, I showed you getting objects generating signs. The essential tool I showed you, that's also open source. Academically like stuff that is I do a lot with SAP as well, by the way. Which is, so this guy called Kogi. It's built by a group in Montpellier, and I use it as a tool. It uses a technology called conceptual graphs. Has anybody heard of conceptual graphs? How many people have heard of conceptual graphs? 1, 2 guys. Yeah? So a quick and a very quick diversion. It's quite interesting really because it's actually short the screen on here. There we go. Right. Let me show you some stuff. There's this guy called John Sower, and he's into ontology. Who is John Sower? Okay. Don't know about, just type in a browser or in search, Sower ontology. That first. Okay. Let's see how smart my engine is. Okay. It's this guy. A guy called John Sower. And look who his friends are. John Zachman. They work together in IBM. Work together in IBM. What's John Sower got to do with anything I've got to do? Right. Just by way, in case we know where this is coming from, yeah, I'm using that approach. I could use SemWebs, and some of you talked to me about using semantic web technologies. I'm sure I can use them. But I want to preserve technologies such as RDF that you might know. For me, are just a little bit constrained to the kind of things I want to do. So I'm using conceptual graphs like this guy called John Sower. Yeah? And he's got some mates like John Zachman and the philosophers amongst you, Charles Peirce. Pragmatism. Remember I talked about pragmatism? Pragmatics, yes? No? We've got semantics. What does semantics do?
James and Dewey, you're right.
Sorry?
James and Dewey, you're right.
Exactly, they're all pragmatist guys, yeah.
Those pragmatists,
yeah.
You would bet he's on the same level.
Okay, we're going to talking about his person. Okay, so stuff, where was I? Yeah, about Charles Peirce. We talked about pragmatics. And this was a guy about sharing meaning. So we got the notion of semantics, which is making meaning. I give a term to something. Pragmatics is sharing, negotiation, fighting with each other about what we mean by the word title. Yeah? Agreeing on standardization, that process of pragmatics. Because we need to have, as Mark said, one truth. One truth represented through one ontology. Yeah? The ontology. Yeah? So pragmatics is that negotiation. We take our semantics and according based on these guys, like Charles Peirce, we engage in the process of pragmatics. And that's what we're doing. We just don't worry about it. But we can do that because it's notion of same space. So that's a little bit of an aside. So that was a side note. Let us go back to Kogi. So we have ontology, we have vocabulary. And the vocabulary is our own, if you like, mini ontology. Not strictly true, but it's just a working definition. Okay? So those of you that know the stuff in depth will say, no, Simon, that's not quite right. I would, of course, have to agree with you because in the detail, there are further considerations. In principle. So we have the notion of a vocabulary. Okay. So this is something I did earlier, because I'm a sort of really type kind of guy, really. Now take a look at this guy on the right. Now I know at the back you definitely can't see this, but let's just make it big anyway. We've got the top, we've got categorization, and I've got objects. So what am I missing? I've got I've got context and object. What's the other thing?
Classification.
Classification. Where's that? That's in there. I'll show you in a minute. Okay? Relations. Now look at this guy. Let me shrink this down so it just looks like something you pattern your wallpaper with. Let's take this guy right down. Work. Alright, it looks a bit like a tree, but it isn't. It's what we call an acyclic graph. Again, apologies for the poor quality of service because of the notes. Don't worry about the terms, they're just signs anyway. We're looking at the objects. Okay? So you can see it looks like a tree. Mainly, things are going into a hierarchy of trees, so like many nodes pointing into one node. Right in here, I've got a few choice things pointing to a few different directions. I've got one here, or business competency. Okay. It's pointing to competency in value mode, and also pointing to competency in performance mode, because that's a particular categorization inside of that other guy I showed you earlier. So folks, hello guys, this question for you. Where's the classification happening? Where's the classification happening? Right. Yeah, these are classifications, they're subtypes, they're ISAs. They're all ISAs. Am I just making this up? Yeah, I might be. Remember, this is my little workshop. Yeah? And of course, I can make mistakes. I'm just messing. I'm only me on my own. Yeah. Not rolling this out to you guys. Yeah. If I'm going to be a fool with a tool, I'd rather be my own fool with my own tool. Yeah. So here, look. PPI is a measure. KPI is a measure. Make sense? I showed you that earlier. Look at this guy. KPI is a cross object. Yeah? It's a cross object in a performance model. We can pick that up from differentiating between classifications and categorization in the meta model. Without the meta model, it's a bit hard. Yeah? It's too much indirection. To do that kind of stuff, I can pick up that one, it's easy. But this sort of cross-object in performance model, there's a load of different pictures inside of, and I'm only using 3 pictures. I'm using circles and boxes, that's it.
So Simon, is this how you get to the chart where the 1, 2s, and 3s?
The chart's what I'm below there. The 1, 2s, and 3s gets you to here eventually. Yeah? I don't go back. I can cascade it upwards. But the stuff that goes into the 1, 2, 3s and all the other stuff, and the processes, remember you go through a process, don't you?
Yeah, but
steps
like
and stuff, it leads to this model.
Do the edges have any cost to them?
Sorry?
If you're talking on a graph, you have nodes, do the edges have any cost to them, or are they just connected?
No, if you're talking about the direction, I use arrows because they're a cyclic directed graphs. That's what you mean.
So that's where I'm leading to. The arrows have a cost to open up to graph theory or something like that.
Exactly, it's graph theory. They're called conceptual graphs, and spot on. For those who know, it's graph theory. In fact, those who've interested, it's a cyclic directed graph. Yeah. So the maths guys amongst you. Yeah. Okay. So look on here, folks. Where am I getting this from? You can't read it. Performance model, value. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Performance. I said no doing it, didn't I? Silly me, I don't even know what I'm doing. Performance model and value model. And I'm using those as classifications. In particular context. The key word there is context. Now remember, we could go through a pragmatic process here if there was another individual as sad as me, who did it at this level, and we'd say, yeah, well, I'd do it slightly different. So that would happen as well. So please don't take what I say as gospel. It's just, as it were, with my lab coat on, kicking stuff around, seeing what comes out of it, and so on and so on. Okay. So where's Cody? So this looks potentially a bit like a bird's nest, loads of nodes. Okay, you can say the meta model looks like a bird's nest, and you can say those charts, there's a lot of information. What I can do is I can group them. I could group them graphically, or I can group them as an acyclic graph. They're an acyclic graph because I showed you the KPI one pointing in two different directions of the cross object. So simply here, it's all in there, it's all contained in there. And I can drill down or drill up. And I can keep going. And I can keep going. For no other reason than I just feel like doing it.
5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay, right. So I can keep doing that. I got 5 minutes, folks. That's okay, because let me look at the relations. There's our relations. What do these guys look like? Let's have a look. Look at this one. Now this is somebody, only people are crazy to do this kind of stuff. Yeah. That's our relation hierarchy. Now that you don't see inside the ER diagram. But I need it because I want to look at the hierarchical, I want to look at a classification of relations as well as a classification of objects. Because we're using terms like is, in, is a, part of. Yeah? Is and in. Is and in. In, look at here, folks, so let me box it. Trust me, this says in on the left. I can break it in, participates in, performs in. Let me find a real one that is, that'll do. Look at this guy, this is really hierarchical. Is against, is by. I pick this all up from the meta model. I can just keep going. I'm just taking the narrative and breaking it down to the component words as I interpret it. Yeah? So I've got a relational hierarchy as well. So I know I've got 5 minutes, folks, so what do I do with this? Let's move on quickly. Look at this guy. Yeah? What I've done is, don't bother trying to read it, folks. What I've done is I want to, because I've captured it as conceptual graphs, I want to capture the relations as conceptual graphs. Not only that, I want to put arrows on it. Because unfortunately, in the ERD, I've only got associations. And from a proving point of view, I can't have things going round in circles. I have to put direction on. So quickly, in my miserable 5 minutes that I've got left. Okay. Because, as always, I thought I had more time than I did, folks. Let me just show you one quickie. For no other reason than, okay, see this guy? This is going round in circles. Where does it start? Where does it end? It goes around. I need to make the direct. Why do I want to do that? Because I want to look for patterns. I want to look for flows. I want to look for bottlenecks. I want to look for missing concepts. I want to look for duplications. So for that, I've got to use something called forward concept analysis. And to do that, I squirt it into this other tool. I take that model, I want to run, where's the start object, where's the top, where's the bottom. Yesterday I said to you what the architect said to me. She said to me, asked her, what does an architect do? She said to me, a blank piece of paper to the last nail inside of the wall. And in case you've forgotten, this was my last nail in the wall, this network cable. Okay. So look at this guy. Right? I'll make it big, but if I was to make it small, I've restated that at the mathematical level. I'm not drawing this, the tool's doing it. It's got the signs, which are the words, it's got the objects. I don't want to see the signs, I'll switch them off. I've still got ontological relationships. I can use that now because I've talked about namespaces earlier. Yeah? Between these guys. Don't worry about the red stuff, it's because the actual lines are overlapping. Nothing wrong with the red. Okay. I can turn on if I want to see them. I've captured concept and relationship. The way it works is You've got your concept on the left, you've got your concept on the right, and you've got that relation bingo in the middle. I want to traverse it with those arrows. What I do is, I risk getting technical in the short time I've got, I concatenate the target object with the relation. So here, just picking one guy, before Henry comes in and chucks me out. Right.
Are the relationships always verbs?
No. In ERDs they are, but I'm a bit loose and fast because so it was. They should be. If you're an ERD guy, your entities are nouns and your relations are verbs. That will, if you're interested in this, there's something called SOA's conceptual catalogue and ontologies that illustrate this better than I can. See the guy there? Forces, external intel, that's a relate, that's an object. Influences, I concatenate them. I get a route, I get a path. I use the arrows to get me to where I'm going. Alright, and then, because, now let's get rid of all this stuff because I'm interested in the objects. Nothing wrong with signs, we need signs. Because we can't communicate with this, we need signs. I need some labels on this guy. But as you can see, I can call the labels whatever I want. I can change the names in there, they're only names. I can call my categories sausages, yeah, or chips. It'll still come out exactly the same. It's for our benefit that we use signs because we need to interpret the model. But the model works anyway. Okay? So in here, we have a number of nodes, start at the top and go to the bottom. So look at this, folks. Blank piece of paper, last nail in the wall. So you can traverse it as a structure. What does this guy look like? Let's put the labels back on. 40 labels. Let's put some pictures on it. At the top, we've got 3 objects. Forces, external and internal, business role, and data entities. But they're all attached to the same concept. So what does that suggest? You get something like that, what might that suggest to you? I've got 3 names pointing at one thing. What does that suggest?
Model.
Sorry?
A model?
This is a model. And all models are wrong, so we're useful, so I hope this is useful. Yeah? We've got 3 names for the same thing. Now this is cheating, alright, so please don't go out there and go and start beating up Henrik and Mark and saying, rubbish. I played with it, I've tweaked this to demonstrate. I've done this for dramatic effect. But I've got 3 guys, 3 objects pointing to the same concept. What does that suggest to you?
Need more decomposition.
We need more decomposition. We need to identify missing relations, indirect relations, yeah, and also it could be duplication. We're using 3 names for the same thing, and that's got to be useful to you guys. Yeah. 1, that's good because we're talking about the same thing. We've got 2 signs pointing to the same object. Or alternatively, we've got too many objects. We've got 2 objects saying the same thing. We've got duplication. That's number 1. But please, this is purely for dramatic effect. Right? I'm not saying there's a problem with forces, internal, external, business role, and data entities. I'm not saying that. Please be careful. Right?
So,
just purely for demonstration.
So let's take the example. You said you call a category chips, right?
Yeah.
So when you call chips, I call Chris. Or you call, when I call chips, you call Chris.
Yeah.
And when you call chips, I call French fries.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So there's a certain level that I would hope this one helps us pull out those differences.
Yeah. You and I have got different namespaces. That's number 1.
Yeah.
Number 2, they point to the same object. You're one interpretant, I'm the other. The object is the same. Your side is different from my side. We can both live in the same ontology because we're in different namespaces. So that's a great example. Brilliant. The best ones are the ones that come from the audience, not from the
Can you see how tightly coupled those 3 terms are to that one piece? Are they loosely associated, or do you just see that there's a relation?
I'm just doing this at this level at the moment. I could go back and go back to the conceptual graph and start to unpick it with you. What I would do if I had more time, I stop messing around. Yeah, I start putting new links in, taking links out, and you'll see how this slide changes quite dramatically, quite quickly as well. Okay, but I must show you a couple of things. I want to show you more, but I'm timed out. look at this guy. You've got some stuff in here that's got nothing attached to it. I've got concepts. Well, I've got a question about concepts, didn't I? Yeah. How many of them are there? There are 29 here. Don't count them. Yeah, but these are concepts. So, the concepts based on, they're not the number of objects, it's the number of concepts. Right. Everybody's coming back in here. So, these guys are objects or concepts without any objects. So that could tell us that we've got a concept, we've got an object that has no sign attached to it. So what gives? Maybe significant, might not. It's interesting in this one because I'm just using it as an example. You can see how we link business process to KPI, for instance. We pass through one of those anonymous concepts, but we don't pass through measure. But we do pass through KPIs as well, as well as the PPI. But that's something we need to look at, potentially. We've got a guy at the bottom here. Yeah? We haven't got our last nail in the wall. Possibly, might matter. Yeah? We've got two endpoints. In this example, we've got the measures and we've got the data object. At the moment, the model says we've got two endpoints. I haven't got the last nail in the wall. I've got some data and I've got a KPI. What we want to do is use lattice theory to see if we can tease out what's at the bottom of it. Okay. I've got other work and papers you can read. I demonstrate this with work examples and stuff. Not with lead, but with other stuff. But please, once again, third time, don't take this away. There's a problem with the meta model. This is just me deliberately tweaking the meta model to demonstrate or dramatic effect. Have I run out of time? I'm going to keep going until I get arm wrestled. Yeah? I've got to show you one more thing, which I think is potentially very interesting. If I've got time, if I'm timing out actually. Right? One more thing, and only one more thing, folks. Okay. I'll have to demo this to you offline. But I want to show you the other one of this thing that I've got. This is all noise, I know it is. Can you see that generally in the first diagram the flows start from the top and the arrows go down to the bottom? Now in this guy, oops, I've changed the direction of these arrows from the first diagram. I've got a start point of data entries for no other reason that I've interpreted as a little bit of informality in the meta model. Just a bit, but enough to cause a problem. Yeah? And that is an element of ambiguity about those associations. So what happens here is, because data entities are start point, I could demo this, but I've timed out because I'm stealing time. I don't want the most popular guy in the whole conference. But the data entries is the start point. So, last question, and I'm done, is if in, you can see all these tools I've got, looking at this guy, where do you think data entities would appear? It's a start point. Where do you think it would appear? At the top. What do you think to that?
It's a start point.
It's a start point, but is it in the right? Mark talks about levels, right? Yeah? You've got data. Where does data entities sit? If you're happy it sits there, then it's happy at the top. But if it doesn't, yeah? So there's another way of using this kind of environment and for tools to be able to look at these dimensions. So check for missing objects, check for duplications, check for interesting relationships, check for things that look a bit funny, and also see that you're getting the kind of layering that you're expecting to see in this kind of. Okay. So that's it, folks. So I've got my lab coat on. These are hypotheses and questions. Yeah? All right, this is the product. It's just showing you some of the things we can do with the meta model predicated on all the stuff that Lead gives us. So we can continue to validate and prove. One last thing, of course, I've only worked with the meta model. I've only worked with this last sentence. I've only worked with a meta model. You would work with your model because you populate the meta model with your enterprise. So it's interesting potentially because you might find in your population of the meta model, you might find some interesting relationships that might warrant further investigation.
But,
okay, folks.
But I thought that we can't add to the model, but we can cut from the model, right?
You can add to the model. According to model theory, you can specialize the meta model. Now, Mark said you don't have to use everything. That's okay because you decided to do nothing with it. Yeah? You just don't use the relationship, but it's there. You just don't use it.
Right.
You can't cut the meta model. You just don't use it. Very, very important.